Hello and welcome, my gorgeous Washaya Wellness Warrior. In today's episode, we are going to get even more honest than the last one, because I'm talking about somewhere that a lot of women don't really feel like they want to share, and it's that deep current of I should have it together by now. We're talking about what happens when the identity that you spent years building in the corporate world, the one where alongside your job title you had other titles such as the high achiever, the reliable one, the go-to girl, the one who doesn't need help, doesn't ask for it. When all of that begins to slip away, this is where the voice, the noise of I should have it together by now gets louder. And in and amongst all of this noise, this chaos, the change and transition, you suddenly don't know who you are without that particular version of yourself. If you're nodding already, you're not alone. This is one of the most deeply misunderstood stages of the corporate deconditioning journey. It's that in-between space of who you were and who you are remembering and becoming. It's that space between who you want to be and who you're actively taking steps to embody. It feels as though you are standing in a really long hallway with all of the doors wide open, but none of them feel familiar yet. There are so many choices in front of you, so many opportunities, but you don't know what's going to happen. That element of being unsure is the next thing that is on your mind. And it feels like the things that used to define you don't fit anymore, but the new identity hasn't really had a chance to feel anchored, and that feels a little bit uncomfortable for you right now. And it feels as though you're shedding a skin that wasn't really yours in the first place, but you wore it just because. And the reason that it feels different is because you outgrew that identity years ago, but you didn't realize until now how tightly woven it was and how tightly you've been clinging on to that identity for the pure reason of safety and for a quote unquote easier life. And if you feel lost right now, I would like you to take a minute to breathe with me. Inhale and exhale. This right now is not the total collapse of your identity. It can feel that way, but the crumbling of what used to define you is actually here to reveal what's underneath. This is the moment where you begin to return to who you've always been, and you get to decide who you are and exactly what that looks like, even if all the pieces aren't together. You can start with one part of you and one interest and continue to build. You have time, you can slow down, you can reprioritize. It is okay. So let's talk about the version of you who built your corporate identity. She was efficient, organized. She was often stretched thin, but she was always delivering the projects and actionable steps on time in a flawless manner. She was quick to say yes and slow to admit that she needed help. She was incredibly capable. But that strength, or perceived strength, was actually a contributor to your downfall. But somewhere along the way, she believed that her worth was tied to how much she could hold, manage, or fix. And that identity didn't appear out of nowhere. It was shaped by expectations, family patterns, friendship circles, survival instincts, and a world that rewards women who sacrifice themselves in the name of productivity. You didn't become her because you were being fake. You became her because the world demanded it of you. But now, your soul is asking for something completely different. Something slower, something softer, something deeper and more spacious. And the moment that you stop forcing yourself into that old identity, the moment that you loosen your grip on who you should be, everything starts to shift in your favor. You begin to notice how drained you feel pretending to be the woman who is always switched on, always available, always ready to help others before helping herself. You realize how uncomfortable it is to perform confidence when you are in fact exhausted. You begin to crave softness in ways that feel almost embarrassing to admit, and you start wanting a life that honors you instead of one that uses you. This is the moment that your identity begins to fall away. The identity that you have been so close to previously, because that was all you knew. And I want you to know that this is normal. Now, this part of your journey is supposed to feel disorientating. No, it's supposed to feel uncomfortable. It's supposed to feel strange. It is, in fact, supposed to feel as if you're floating between the different versions of yourself. And I'm not going to say the two versions of yourself, because in this phase, in this wave of your journey, you are in fact figuring out which aspects of you want to keep and bring forward, and then you are also deciding which elements of yourself are no longer serving you. You're deciding which elements of yourself are no longer serving you for where you would like to move forward to in your next chapter. And this isn't so structured in the sort of categories of like the old version of you and the newer upgraded version. There are many micro shifts in between point A and B, because you're not at the complete end of that journey, because you're continuing to evolve. And when you get to that upgraded version, life might shift again, and then you have to adjust your way of life slightly, maybe not as drastically, but having that ability to like adjust and not necessarily start over, but include things and just adapt and just continue adapting is going to help you, rather than feeling like you need to do everything correct the first time, and if you make a choice you have to stick with that choice. No, you can create a life that allows you to adapt and flow with how you are, who you are, and how you're feeling. And this is just the beginning part of who you are and who you are shifting into as you are healing different parts of you. But no one talks about that bit because it's messy. There's no perfectly curated to-do list of things that look pretty and bring results straight away, because on one day it might work, but then you may try the same sequence of steps and it might be something that you're able to do, but you don't get the same satisfaction out of it. And it's not to say it's not working, it's just that things need to be slightly adapted depending on what it is that you need in that moment. There might be a time where you've set a timer for, I don't know, maybe a 10-minute meditation, and instead of sitting up and closing your eyes, you may feel like doing the meditation lying down with a weighted blanket and a blindfold, or like an eye mask, not blindfold. Oh my gosh, an eye mask. See, this is what happens when I struggle with finding certain words. Like, I know what I want to say, but sometimes I forget words, and this is the result. So yeah, so maybe you just need to adapt that activity in your to-do list or the self-care checklist that you have, and being able to do that can really shift how you feel about the particular activity. So yeah. Sound check. Okay, I think we are good to go. So, the mess is all part of the magic and the miracle. And that is what makes it the most important part, because in this mess and the chaos of not knowing what to do, how to do it, and not really having a plan, it helps you really connect with your intuition, and that then becomes something that you know that is important. So you just find out more about yourself because you're giving yourself that space and that time to make a quote unquote mistake. That's not really a mistake, it's just a lesson that helps you learn more about the world around you, about yourself outside of the corporate world and that corporate based identity. Let's get into what is actually happening inside of you, because once you understand this, the confusion and the energy of what is going on, what have I done, starts making a lot more sense. When you operate in survival mode for years, your body weaves into and bonds to that identity in an attempt to keep you safe, and for the most part it did. For you, that was working hard, it was being reliable, it was being the one who was always strong, it was the one who could push through anything. And over time, your nervous system literally associated productivity with safety. So when you slow down, what happens? When you rest, when you stop overperforming, your body interprets that as danger, even though your soul knows it's what you need. And this is why deconditioning feels so confusing. It's where your mind says, I want a moment to relax and I want softness. Your soul says, I want peace. I want a moment where everything is quiet. And your body says, I don't know what's happening and I'm scared. You're not crazy, you're not broken, and you're certainly not backsliding. You are just unraveling an identity that was rooted in survival and not truth, and not anybody else's truth. It's not anchored in your truth. You're just unraveling an identity that was anchored in survival instead of truth. And to kind of go deeper into that, it wasn't a truth that is one that belongs to everybody else. It wasn't your truth. So now I really want to kind of talk about the fear that comes with all of this, because one of the most common phrases that I hear is, I don't know who I am anymore. And I say this lovingly. You say that as if it's a bad thing. But listen, you aren't abandoning or losing yourself right now. You are simply losing that version of you that was built on burnout, pressure, and performance. But the real you, the intuitive you, the creative you, the soft you, the expressive you, the womb-led you, she's not disappearing. She is emerging. And I'm here witnessing you, celebrating you, and that version of you coming out into the world, spreading your magic, sharing your voice, your creations, the passion you have for the things you create, and how those things that you create impact those who get to experience it. There is a difference between being lost and being unlayered. You are not lost. You are actually just being revealed. And now I'm gonna come in with something else. The guilt. Because I know it's there. I've been there. I've felt it. And sometimes it still shows up for me. You feel guilty slowing down because you think you're being lazy. You feel guilty when you rest because you were taught that rest has to be earned. You feel guilty saying no because you've been conditioned to be the yes woman, You feel guilty for saying no because you've been conditioned to be the yes woman your entire life. You feel guilty for wanting something more meaningful, more soulful, and more aligned. Guilt is one of the final symptoms of your old identity trying to hold on and claw into you so that you don't get to be a part of this new life that you're creating alongside this new identity. Your old identity is still trying to hold on through any means necessary. But guilt isn't the truth. It is simply conditioning. It's the echo of a system that convinced you that your worth exists outside of you. But every time you choose yourself, you chip away at that echo. You soften the old identity and you make space for the woman that you are becoming. This is now the fun part because we get to declare and really feel into who that woman actually is. Because you're not just letting go of an identity like a costume that you've decided to put on. You are stepping, swimming, rolling into a new one. The new identity, the new woman feels slower. She's more intuitive. This identity is more connected to your body. You're less impressed by hustle culture. You're more interested in ease, safety, and creativity. You are more aligned with the cyclical nature of life, the element of seasons and softness. You are more anchored. You are more receptive. And you are more alive in the day-to-day rather than feeling disconnected. She is the version of you who doesn't need to be constantly switched on to feel worthy. She trusts her body more than artificial external deadlines. She honors her intuition more than productivity charts. She moves at a slower pace, but more intentionally. She chooses a life that nourishes her, not the one that drains her. This is the woman who emerges after burnout. This is the woman that you are becoming. And I really want to tell you something that is very important. You get to grieve the old identity and celebrate the new one at the same time. You're allowed to miss the structure that you came to know and love through predictability and safety, running on autopilot, while you have outgrown it or are in the process of outgrowing that specific structure. You are allowed to feel nostalgia for the version of you who could power through absolutely anything. And you're allowed to feel scared stepping into a life that is no longer built on urgency. You are allowed to be proud of how far you've come, even if you have no idea of where you're going next. You're allowed to be human. You don't need to be healed fully. You don't need to be super soft all the time. You certainly don't need to be perfect. And you don't need to perfect that version of yourself overnight. This is a process. It's a transition, and it is the foundation of the rest of your life. And transitions are always messy at some stage. It's just that a lot of people don't tell you about the messy part. But they are always sacred when you actually look at the magic and the process of the transition itself once the transition is complete. And you're not really meant to know exactly who you are becoming just yet, because I've learned that identity work isn't about having crystal clear clarity all the time. There are moments where things get a bit foggy. But as long as you are surrounded by the right people who can come in and support you and hold you, those foggy moments are part of the journey. And that in itself, having people around you to come and hold you, not trying to fix things, but if you ask them for help, they come in and say, hey, why not try this? And then they take a step back and give you that space. That's what it's about, gives you the space to experiment. It gives you the space to figure things out. And it's like when you're riding a bike, it can feel like with life, the training wheels get taken off and you just start to wobble, but there are people around you that can put the training wheels back on until you feel better, or they keep the training wheels off and you actually get to be stabilized without the training wheels, but with the people around you. They're stabilizing the bike, so you are continuing to move forward. And if you decide that you need to jump off the bike and have a rest, you are still being encouraged by those people around you. So it's about clearing everything that isn't you, so that your truth has space to move around and figure out where it feels most at home in your body. And that feeling of you being lost, it's actually the space that you've created. And because you aren't feeling that anxiety of so many deadlines showing up, there is possibility in that area. So those spaces where you feel very little emotion, it's due to a lot of pressure being removed. So you may feel like you're starting to float, and because you've not felt as though you were able to float in a way that feels good for you in so long, you get to decide what happens, because you are now in the ocean of possibility. And it's the quiet moment before you emerge into that next version of you and the new identity, the new life that you are building. She's coming. She's already forming in the background while you rest and hydrate and refuel. She is already whispering to you. She is already pulling you towards a slower and softer, more spacious and expressive life. You do not need to rush this. You do not need to fix anything. And you do not need to define your life in this moment right now. It can wait. You just need to let yourself be in the in-between without judging it, yourself, the environment, or the circumstance. Because in the in-between, in this void, this is where you meet your real self. You are shedding, you are releasing, you are becoming softer, you are simply recalibrating and remembering who you have always been. You aren't losing who you are. You are becoming and in the process of transforming and evolving into who you're always meant to be. You are in a process. Welcome to your unbecoming, and welcome to your becoming. Welcome to your unfolding, unraveling, and unveiling. Welcome to your serenity. Thank you ever so much for spending time with me today. Until next time, I will see you soon.